Well, guess what? I'm back. I didn't really go anywhere, but I'm not too comfortable with this whole solo filming thing. So Rod's been doing it, or Rocket, whoever you want to call him. I've known him 30 years and I've always called him Rod, but you can call him Rocket. So yes, I am back, but I never went anywhere. Have I still got the Patrol? Yes. Have I still got the Triton? Yes. Have I done a lot of four-wheel driving lately? No. COVID, I sort of took up golf. And my big dog died, so I haven't really done a lot of four-wheel driving that I used to do. But you know, we evolve as people. But I'm still here, YouTuber now, apparently. That's what we're going to do, so I'm going to do it. I do miss climbing up muddy hills that go to nowhere. No, I don't. What I do miss is the travelling to and from the shoots. That was my favourite part. But anyway, we're still going to do that sort of stuff. What we're doing at the moment is playing with this L300 that we've invested a fair bit of cash and effort into. So we're going to develop some products to hopefully improve on what it already is, tell you what we think about it and what we like, what we don't like, and take you along for the ride. When we bought this, I took it for a spin to Orange for the weekend, just to see how it went, get some figures on fuel economy and see how the auto behaves, and got some gauges in it measuring temperature. Went to Midnight Oil concert with a few mates from school. That was a blast. So anyway, I've got it back and I'm going to take it back on the same trip with my lovely wife this time. Pack the golf clubs and we're going to head towards Wentworth. I've got a caravan that I've picked up from around the corner. I'm going to put it on the back of the beast, drive off for 4 days, see what the temps do, see how the auto behaves, see what fuel economy we get, all that sort of things that nomads like to have all the information about. Hope you enjoy it. So it's day 2. The weather is, well, not real flash. I've made it to Wellington. It's raining. The race I was going to go to is being abandoned. So it's all good. Not. Wellington. Let's talk about Wellington. Probably not talk about Wellington. That's somewhere to see. Caravan park was okay. Talk about caravan. This whole caravan thing, what I've noticed on the way up here is there's this caravan salute that everyone does. I used to think it was an outback thing when you've driven for half a day and not seen anyone else, they'd wave to you. But it would appear that if you drive a caravan, well, if you're towing a caravan, you get this caravan wave. So I feel like I'm part of a fraternity now. I feel quite privileged. Although I'm not sure that caravan life is for me after the last couple of nights. Comfortable, but I don't know. We'll see as we get older. But anyway, we'll talk a bit later on about the experience I've had with the way it shifts, transmission temperatures, the way it drives in drive, the way it drives in sports mode, the comfort, fuel economy, all those things. We've been recording all that stuff and taking notes, and I've got the scanner hooked up, I've got temperature gauges. So I did all that on the way up to Orange a few months ago without a van on the back, just in stock form. Bear in mind, I am towing a caravan with a completely stock vehicle as well. So, you know, it is straight off the showroom floor, same tyres, everything. So it hasn't been modified whatsoever. So I guess it could be a little bit more comfortable if it was modified a bit. But while it does the job, I'd say, you know, towing wise it could be better, but that's why we have an aftermarket industry, isn't it, I guess. And it is a pretty heavy van. It's, you know, probably pushing 3 tonne. This is basically the rig and the towed caravan in question. It's a JK Silverline that we've hired. It weighs about 2.5 tonne. I'm guessing by the time we fill it up with all our stuff and fill the tanks up and everything, it's going to be, you know, somewhere close to 3. It's your standard sort of Silverline van. It's pretty flash inside. It's got a heater, and the heater's going when it's bloody cold. So we're driving along in the rain, heading towards Orange, sitting on about 100 k's. What's interesting to note is that for the vast majority of the trip it sits in 8th gear with lock up on. Although at the moment I'm in ninth with the lock-up off going down a hill, which is interesting. Lock-up's come back on again. We're still in ninth gear. It does tend to sort of run between 8th gear, 9th gear. Most of the time lock-up is on. It does, however, tend to want to downshift to a lower gear with the slightest bit of encouragement from a very small slight hill, and at the same time lock-up comes off. So there may well be an argument for a lock-up kit moving forward. Certainly not as severe, I guess, as the issues that we have with the 200 series as far as lock-up goes, but there is definitely an indication that lock-up tends to oscillate a fair bit, and it definitely is related to load. As far as temperature goes, temperature sits around 70 degrees most of the time. Obviously with lock-up off, under load, temperature rises quite steeply. Now I'm also driving in a very mild ambient temperature in the rain, so I would imagine that if we were driving in an area where it's 30 plus degrees, towing a similar load, we would see significantly higher temps. So I definitely think we have a case for an extra oil cooler, being that this vehicle doesn't have one anyway. It just simply has the cooler going through the radiator. So yeah, it definitely I would say that we will look at doing an oil cooler kit based on the temperatures I'm seeing in the conditions I'm driving in now. While they're not high, they are more than acceptable. I would imagine that in more testing conditions, they probably wouldn't be as acceptable. One thing I noticed when we were driving down the road before, quite a large truck coming the other way. When it went past, it actually blew the mirror into the door. It did eventually open back up again when I pressed a few buttons, but I didn't think I was that close to it, nor did I think it was that big a truck. Certainly the wife didn't scream and yell at me and give me any indication that my driving was a problem, so it seemed like a quite normal experience. It's just interesting that the mirror did that. So I'm sitting behind a small truck doing about 90 kilometres an hour in cruise control. For the most part, we're in 8th gear, sometimes 7th. Generally without any real load, we're sitting in 8th. Although what does happen is that when we're in 7th, we're doing around 2,000 revs with lock-up on. But when we're in 8th, we've got no lock-up. We're not getting lock-up at that sort of road speed. In drive, I'll try the same thing in sports mode. It's pretty much the same. We don't get lock-up at that sort of speed when we're in that gear. Now, not everyone's going to tow at 90 kilometres an hour, but in my experience of driving around the country in the last 30 years, there are plenty of people that do. And you would probably get pretty good fuel economy, I would imagine, if that's what people are looking for. Yeah, if you're the sort of person that doesn't do 100 kilometres an hour towing your caravan, and there are a lot, quite possibly a lock-up kit may be what you needed in one of these. Let's talk caravan etiquette. Let's see if these people wave to me. So I wave to them. On what, 2 fingers, 1 finger. I'm new to this caravanning thing, so we're learning about the whole etiquette. I used to always think that it was an outback remote thing where we hadn't seen someone for 4 hours, you'd do the thing. It would appear now that caravanners do it as well. Only caravanners, but, which is interesting. The bigger your car, the more fingers or even a whole hand you seem to get. Like if you're driving a little car, like a little ute, you might just give like 1 finger because you don't really want to take both hands off the steering wheel. If you're driving like a Landcruiser, you're pretty much doing 2 fingers, and the confident guys are doing a hand. If you're driving a Ram, it's like both hands, 2 thumbs. So it's final day, we're on our way home now. I'm going to say that this trip weather-wise has been less than ideal. In fact, it is pouring with rain, it is freezing cold, and has been all night. So anyway, we've got like a 4-hour trip home. I'm going to drive home in Tiptronic mode this time. Probably just play around between 8th and 9th gear. Pretty sure lockup will come on in both those gears on the freeway. They're both overdrive gears, 7th gear being 1-to-1. Downside of that is there is no cruise control, which is annoying. Not much fun driving in this weather, towing, nearly 3 tons of caravan. Anyway, let's get this thing home, unpack, and we'll do a bit of a summary. Alright, so we're back from the trip, back in sunny Melbourne. One of my favourite whiskies. So, it's been a long 4 days. I'll start by saying that although the weather in Melbourne at the moment, now I'm home, isn't amazing, it is certainly warmer and drier than anywhere else I've been the last 4 days. And that's saying something. The car went pretty much as expected, I think. Like I said, I have driven this vehicle to Orange in the past. It was a comfortable car to drive, plenty of power, but there was just me in it, no one else, and no luggage, no nothing apart from my golf clubs. And you know, we're able to cruise up there on about 10 litres per 100 there and back, 1500 odd Ks. So I didn't try and be fuel efficient. I didn't try and thrash it either, just speed limit up, speed limit back scenario. Towing the van, which is 2.5 tonne plus whatever we've put in it, so I'm guessing, you know, we'd be pushing 3 tonne. Time we fill tanks up and luggage and myself, the wife, the dog, the car, you know, whatever. So it's not by any means stretching the GVM, but it's up there. You know, it's what I'd expect a lot of people will be towing. What I like about the car, it's got tons of power. Like, it's really good to drive. Like, it's, you know, it's responsive. The gearing's really good in the low gears, the high gears. The powertrain is really good. Like, very happy with it. The dash controls and the steering, and you know, the audio unit, the interaction, you know, and all that sort of stuff is really, really good. What is okay, I find the handling okay. It's not fantastic. It feels a bit light to me, but and saying that, I do have the van on it, and it is a stock standard vehicle with factory tyres, factory everything, right? Suspension's the same. I'm sure that put a bit of aftermarket suspension on it and some shocks, it might be a bit better. No doubt about that. But, you know, and it's comfortable, but it's not super comfortable. I mean, I didn't, you know, I found, I think because of the, one of the cons that I don't like about the car is there's a lot of electronic gizmos going on. Lane centering control, anti-swerve, this, that, and everything else. Like, everything's beeping at you. I'm sure you can turn all this stuff off if you want to go through the book, and if you, you know, it'll be in here somewhere. It could be this one, it might even be in the advanced information guide for Australian conditions, because that's what you need. And then there's this one about how to turn the TV off and on. But look, maybe you can't turn the stuff off. I don't know. The lane centering is what does my head in. On the freeway, it's fantastic. Like, you know, if you just sit your finger on the steering wheel, that's all you got to do. It'll stay there, no problem at all. I wouldn't suggest you do that. You should drive the car for sure. But it does do that. Off the freeway, on your average country road, highway, whatever, Olympic highway, it's the diabolical. It wants to throw you into the oncoming traffic. It turned the thing off. You might get used to it. I didn't get used to it. There's a button on the steering wheel you can turn that off, but you still have the lane departure warning, but that's not so bad. But I still find that you fight with the car. Even though you try and relax, you still try and fight with it. And I don't know, that's just not how I like to drive. But anyway, the stupid door lock system, which you've got to press buttons twice and doors don't unlock, and the driver's door, you put it in gear, it's just, I don't know. I'm sure that's in here too. But, you know, who knows. As far as the auto goes, I found the auto quite good. It matches the engine and the car very well. There were circumstances where I found that it looked like though it got hotter than I was comfortable with under load conditions. Those conditions really only appeared to occur in drive under cruise conditions, when the vehicle decides that it wants to overcompensate for load by throttling on and working hard and flaring up the converter. It did come down after it got out of that condition, as you'd expect, although it was freezing cold. So I'd expect that on conditions that aren't as favourable, we would have overheating issues or at least over temperature issues. So I think there's definitely a case for an external oil cooler, and we will look into that. There's definitely a case for a valve body upgrade to enhance the shift quality, and we'll definitely look into that. And a lock-up kit. Whether you want to drive in drive or whether you want to drive in sports mode, you'll still get lock-up in sports mode under some conditions, not all conditions. So that may be a case for a lock-up kit if you want to drive in sports mode a lot. 10th gear is just not there. It is a 10-speed, 7th gear is 1-to-1. 8th and 9th are overdrive gears, so is 10th gear you won't get till you're doing 130 kilometers an hour in drive, so you won't get it. It's just not a viable option. You can get 10th gear in sports mode at about 100 k's, maybe even less, if you shift it into 10th gear, but you will not get lock-up in 10th gear until well over 120 kilometers an hour, and which I didn't do. I've done it without the van. I wouldn't do it with the van. And I don't know why you want it anyway, because you're only doing about 1200 revs. It's not really a safe scenario, and I don't think you're going to get better fuel economy with that sort of load. 9th gear, you'll get 9th gear with lock up around 100 k's. No problem at all in sports mode and in drive. The grey area is if you're driving in drive in cruise, then you're going to get shifting up and down, lock up off and on. And if you want to drive in sports mode under 100k, say around 90 to 95, which a lot of caravanners do, that's probably the go-to spot to save fuel, then you may want to be looking at a lock-up kit, because lock-up will hardly ever be on. It'll come off and on, a bit like the 200 series did, though in drive it won't. So these are things that we need to consider, I guess, how you want to go forward. So I think, from our perspective, there is a market for a lock-up kit. I think we will try and develop one. Moving forward, it's really going to be up to the modifications to the vehicle, the type of load that you carry, whether you're going to get use out of it or not. I don't think the problem is going to be as bad as what it was in the 200 series, but I do believe the problem is still going to be there. So, for some people it won't be an issue. Some people may find it an issue, so we'll offer a solution either way, I hope, moving forwards. That's our intention. But I think the short term we'll focus on a cooler, a valve body, and then probably look at a lock-up kit. In relation to driving in Tiptronic mode or sports mode, whichever you want to call it, what I have noticed is that in sports mode it is essentially a true sports mode, in the sense that whatever gear you select, once you're in that gear and you're going fast enough, you can throttle on to full throttle. If you're doing 80, 90, 100 kilometers an hour in 7th, 8th, 9th gear, or even 10th, and you full throttle on, it will stay in that gear. It won't downshift like previous models have. It'll stay in that gear and load up, and it'll even keep the lock-up on if it's already on. What's interesting though is that in the same circumstances in drive, with cruise on, because it throttles on, it will downshift up and down all over the place, and lock-up will come off and on. But in sports mode it doesn't. The difference is you don't have cruise. Fuel economy, 10k is empty. With the van on the back, I have averaged about 18 per 100. It's not fantastic. I haven't been pushing the speed limits. I've been pretty much driving about 5k's under prescribed speed limit. So on freeways around mid hundreds, which is probably realistically about 100k's on the normal speed, so about 105, 106 on the speedo, and on country highways around just in the high 90s essentially. It is easy to creep up past whatever speed you're just trying to do when you're in Tiptronic, because the thing's got plenty of power. It'll just keep going and going and going, and you won't, because it's such a comfortable vehicle in many ways, you won't realise how fast you're going until you actually look at the speedo consciously. And you think, oh shit, I'm doing 115 k's, whereas I'm trying to do 100. Hence the beauty of a cruise control. But if you're not driving in drive, you don't have cruise control as an option. So they're one of the things that we need to consider. So yeah, that's my take on it. All in all, it's a good car. Is it better than the 200? In many ways, I think it is. In some ways, maybe not. Still think my Lexus is better than both of them. But anyway, I'm looking forward to doing the next trip with some of our gear on it. And, caravanning. Let's get into it. This is my first deal as a caravaner. My wife's not sold on the idea after doing it. We've done plenty of outback trips, camping and stuff like that, but caravan is a whole new thing to us. We met some nice people in caravan parks. We met some interesting characters as well. It's the whole waving thing. People with other caravans coming the other way, they'll wave to you. No one else does. Even truck drivers don't. What I don't understand is the Mitsubishis. Like, they don't even wave. Don't get me wrong, there was a couple, but wife and I both noticed that bloke didn't wave. I thought, Mitsubishi. Interesting. I'm not going to say not all Mitsubishi owners did that, but a high percentage. I don't know what's with that. Anyway, if you own a Mitsubishi, lift your game. Look me up. One more thing. This is my first YouTube effort. This is my first YouTube effort solo. And it is completely solo because it's just me doing the filming with all this camera gear that I don't know how to use. So be kind. I'm sure I'll get better. I've been talked into it. I've been avoiding it like the plague. But here I am. If it's any good, let me know. If it's not, also let me go. But be kind, eh? Because, you know, I'm not a professional. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Actually, maybe I am. I don't know. Sell you something in the future. Not right now, because I've got nothing to sell you. For this car, anyway. Now I'm just confusing myself. Anyway, YouTube. Apparently it's a new thing. It's now going to be my thing as well. So I'm told. So stay tuned. I'm involved. I'm back. I'll figure out a way to be more entertaining, I promise. Okay. I'm sure I've dragged on that way too much. You'll probably want to cut half of that out. We're recording again. I would hate to be the guy editing this. That would suck. Anyway, but everything can be improved, can't it? Even my efforts on YouTube can no doubt be improved, but that's what the editor's for. So we'll see what he can do. See if he can work your magic, Craig. We're going to check it out. Oh, did I say like, share and subscribe? That's what Rocket wants you to do, so you better make sure you do it. And I like it as well, you know, just quietly. That's it, I'm done till next time.